Imatinib mesylate is a wonderful drug that has revolutionized the management of the CML patients. So otherwise CML is, because of this drug, has become very benign in nature. So in CML there are three goals. Number one, you have to achieve the hematological remission. That is, you must see that the organomegaly resolves and the CBP count becomes normal. Number two is you need to achieve cytogenetic remission. That is, you must see that all the cells become Philadelphia chromosome negative. And finally, molecular remission. That is, that BCR-ABL abnormal gene is there, no, which has tyrosine kinase activity. It also need to become negative. They are the definitions of basically the remission in CML. Imatinib mesylate will be inhibiting the tyrosine kinase activity, and it will be inhibiting the proliferation, and it will induce the apoptosis, and that's how it has got a wonderful role in the management of the CML. So there's a reason, doctor, for the patients who are in the chronic phase of the CML, imatinib at 400 milligrams per day is considered the best therapy. It induces complete hematological remission and a very high cytogenetic response rate is what need to be remembered. So imatinib comes into the group of chemotherapeutic agents. Now there is one more story about it. Hydroxyurea. Hydroxyurea is an inhibitor of the deoxynucleotide synthesis. It is one of the most common myelosuppressive agents which is used. But the problem is, if you have given the hydroxyurea today, in the month of February, you expect in April for the remission to become induced. You need to wait for long before that patient can die because of his anemia. So, and one more thing, even if you induce, by the time next entrance comes, it is already, effect is gone, and you may once more have a relapse by the time the notification comes. So, because of its short duration of myelosuppression, hydroxyurea cannot be answered at any given day. How about busulfan, the Myleron, alkylating agent, very simple tablet you can give to the patient. So it keeps the WBC counts at around 15,000, but the myelosuppressive agents will be effects will be very longer. Hence that's the reason, doctor, they may suffer neutropenia and associated infections, and because of that neutropenia, patient can die if he is receiving the busulfan, because it will make the WBC count to fall down aggressively. That's the reason it can't be the answer. Now how about the interferon alpha? It is also used in the CML. But those who are very old to receive the bone marrow transplantation, or who do not have a matched bone marrow donor, in such people you will be using the interferon alpha. One more important thing is, if the patient with CML arrives, immediately you don't ask him to go and receive a bone marrow transplantation. Why? It will cost about 10 to 15 lakh rupees to go to CMC Vellore, stay there and receive the bone marrow transplantation. There's a reason, doctor, give interferon for about 1 year, at the end of it look for the results, give imatinib mesylate. If he is not responding, then the bone marrow becomes the option. So there's a reason, doctor, in young individual less than 55 years, in them the BMT is considered to be a wonderful treatment. Now I don't want to disappoint anybody. Be happy about your own answer, because that unnecessarily rakes anxiety, because we are not sure what is there in the Upar wale ke khazane mein kya hai. So that's the reason, let us leave it for God. Because everything is possible to be a right answer. How you interpret is important. Pessimist sees the empty half of the glass and optimist sees the full half of the glass. Next, lymphoma and HIV. Two important features of the lymphoma of HIV, doctor. It is in the extranodal sites. By the time you diagnose itself, it is in a very advanced stage. So there's a reason, doctor, it is very resistant to treatment and is in the extranodal sites but not in the nodal sites. So what is node? Lymph node. Extranodal means in the CNS lymphoma, similarly GIT lymphoma, lymphoma in the stomach, they are all extranodal in nature. So this gives you in a HIV individual immunocompromised, this kind of lesions are suggestive of the CNS lymphoma. Tell me, doctor, what 4 different types of lymphomas can occur in HIV? Large cell immunoblastic, primary CNS lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease and the small non-cleaved cell type are very, very common, and they are very highly malignant. By the time patient arrives with the lymphoma itself, he is in a very advanced stage. It is commonly in the extranodal site is what need to be basically remembered. What is the cause? Why the people are susceptible to lymphoma in HIV? Number one, that immunosuppressive state will remove the tumor surveillance normally existent in the body. Hence they have more predilection for the development of the tumors in the lymphomas. Number two, the Epstein-Barr virus and the HIV, they themselves can initiate the oncogenesis is what need to be basically remembered. So there's a reason, possible answer can be B. What is the D option in this? You can write in the feedback form. Yeah. Any option, anybody remember, can write it at the end. Let's go to the next question. Patient has got metabolic alkalosis, increased renin, increased aldosterone, our favorite question. That is in the adrenal adenoma where there is a hyperaldosteronism that can lead to development of aldosterone leads to sodium retention, potassium retention, sodium retention, H plus loss. So loss of H plus leads to metabolic alkalosis. Unless you remove the adrenal adenoma or if you give the spironolactone, you can take care of this kind of metabolic alkalosis secondary to the hyperaldosteronism is what need to be basically remembered. So how do you differentiate in the adrenal, doctor, whether it is a adrenal adenoma or adrenal is also a very common site for metastasis? How do you differentiate? So for your inquisitiveness, you are all going to be wonderful radiologists of tomorrow. So typically, doctor, if you take a T1 weighted image, there are two types called opposite phase. In the opposite phase, typically, if it is an adrenal adenoma which contains a lot of fat and water, its signal intensity, you can compare the two, will become decreased. In the case of a metastatic lesion, the intensity will not decrease because commonly you will come across this scenario. Is it adrenal metastasis or adrenal adenoma? You have to be sure about. Let's go to the next question. This is an interesting question. Extrapyramidal symptoms, typically where do you see? Parkinsonism, all of you accept it. First of all, what are extrapyramidal pathways, doctor? Vestibulospinal, rubrospinal, tectospinal, reticulospinal, these are all called as the extrapyramidal. Whereas corticospinal is called as pyramidal tract. So corticospinal is the one which become affected in our stroke patients. Hence they will have Babinski positive, spasticity will be there, all these features will be there. Rigidity is a feature of extrapyramidal symptom. So it is a feature of Parkinsonism. So rigidity can be seen in Parkinsonism. In the case of the carbon monoxide poisoning, is it in the multiple sclerosis or not is a very important question. It is also seen in the multiple sclerosis. Is a sad news for my friends who wrongly answered it. I'll give you what all the things that you see in multiple sclerosis. Young lady complaining of paresthesias with sensory disturbances, with the visual disturbances. You need to think of possibility of multiple sclerosis. Unilateral optic neuritis, diplopia, Lermite sign, limb weakness, clumsiness, gait ataxia can develop in the people who have the demyelination. If the demyelination involves the spinal cord, it can lead to neurogenic bladder and the bubble symptoms. They can have Uthoff symptoms. What is it, doctor? Typically, if they are exposed to increase in the body temperature, if they go to Saudi Arabia for participating in conference, suddenly the madam has developed the worsening of her symptoms. They are called Uthoff symptoms. So they need to be placed in an air-conditioned environment. Similarly, trigeminal neuralgia. Trigeminal neuralgia in a young individual, unless proven otherwise, need to be suspected due to the multiple sclerosis, the golden dictum, which you should not basically forget. Generally, you find it in elderly individual. If it is in young individual, think of the possibility of multiple sclerosis. Similarly, episodic clumsiness, while they are walking, they can't be able to walk properly. And similarly, they will be having dysarthria, aphasia, dementia, sometimes Parkinsonism like syndromes can have an associated problem, and extrapyramidal phenomena like chorea and rigidity will also be there in multiple sclerosis. Don't worry, unless you treat, you will not be knowing. Even if you treat, you may not know also, because what you will remember about knowledge, clinical knowledge, finally you think that the best physician in the Twin Cities know everything? Impossible. He knows how to diagnose and how to not misdiagnose the patient. That makes you an expert physician. So that's the reason, doctor, it is also seen in multiple sclerosis is what you remembered. Anyway, examiner gave you a very easy option. Cerebrovascular accident he has given. That is corticospinal pathway. That is pyramidal tract. Not extrapyramidal is what you can be doubly sure about. Let's go to the next question. Hepatic ascites. Is it more common on the left side, doctor, or on the right side? Liver is on the right. Until you know that, then you can answer this question very easily. So one more important thing is, certain subset of patients can develop spontaneous bacterial peritonitis with the ascites. Why ascites people will develop spontaneous bacterial peritonitis? Because they will be suffering hypoalbuminemia, and their ascitic fluid will be having a low amount of the protein. Opsonins are after all the proteins, so the low opsonic activity in the case of their ascitic fluid predisposes them to develop the spontaneous bacterial peritonitis is what need to be remembered. There's a reason always, doctor, remember, those who are predisposed to the spontaneous bacterial peritonitis in your ward, who has got ascites, don't forget to give the prophylaxis against that SBP. Now what are those conditions? If the patient is having liver disease with a esophageal varices with the GI hemorrhage with the ascites, he is a high candidate to develop spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. Don't forget to give the antibiotic prophylaxis. Similarly, patient who has got a high serum bilirubin, a low ascitic fluid protein concentration, and previous episodes of spontaneous bacterial peritonitis, you need to invariably give prophylactically the oral norfloxacin to prevent and avoid the complication of the spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. So you can see, doctor, the left costophrenic angle is totally clear, whereas the right costophrenic angle is totally blunted because of the presence of the fluid. Hepatic hydrothorax is unmistakable on the right side, not on the left side, is what need to be basically remembered. And how about the tips? Very good question. Typically, can you use the tips in every given case of the liver disease with ascites, doctor? There are certain important things. Typically, the bleeding esophageal varices and the refractory ascites is there. Only as a secondary level of management, not primary therapy, you need to use the tips. Because what is the important complication of tips, doctor? Transhepatic systemic shunt. It can lead to shunting. That's the reason hyperammonemia can occur. Hepatic encephalopathy can become precipitated if you do the tips. That's the reason it is only proven value in those patients who have variceal bleeding uncontrollable with a severe portal hypertension and those who have refractory ascites. Whereas in all other cases, it has only an experimental value, so it is a secondary therapy is what I want to underscore to all of you. Once more, this question you can reconstruct and give me. Let's go to the next question. Sick thyroid syndrome, one of the golden dictums you should not forget. Patient is very sick, if you send the thyroid profile, you may get bad values and you need to give a bad report to the patients. That's the reason, doctor, thyroid report or thyroid investigation need to be sent not in a acute war time. When the patient, of course, if he is already a known case of hypothyroidism, you want to monitor him and prevent the development of a storm in him or a severe hypothyroid crisis, you can send it. But generally, if the patient is very sick, first let the illness come down. And then later on you can send the thyroid profile is a very, very important dictum. Of course, that does not rule out. Suppose if the patient is having something because of the hypothyroidism, if you are suspecting, if you don't send, that is bad. But otherwise, don't try T3, T4, TSH in a very sick patient having severe malaria or some other illness is what need to be remembered. What is the sick thyroid syndrome? It is the abnormal findings of the thyroid function test because of a non-thyroidal illness. Without any actual thyroid dysfunction or the hypothalamic pituitary dysfunction is basically called as the euthyroid syndrome. Euthyroid 6 syndrome, all those abnormal values on the report, because you are not treating the reports, doctor, you are treating the patients. After the sickness recovers, even the values recover is what need to be remembered. Now what are the typical findings of that T3, T4, TSH report in a sick patient? They will be having the low T3 value, but the T4 value will be there within the reference range. And they will be having an elevated RT3, reverse T3 value, but any given point of time the free T4 value will be within the reference range is what need to be remembered. So a normal T4 with a low T3 characterizes the sick euthyroid syndrome is something that you should not basically forget. And suppose if any of my friends have answered low T3 and also low T4, don't worry, I have something to assure you. There is one more thing that is mentioned. If the patient is very sick, then in that case low T3, low T4 both will be there, but don't go to court of law on this point. Probably examiner forgot to consider the second paragraph. First paragraph is sufficient to answer.